And there we are. Looks like I clicked the right buttons. It says we're live on Facebook in the group. Hello, amazing people. You are joining us for what will become, our very next recording of the Hidden Entrepreneur Show. And to join me, I have Melissa McClure. How are you, Melissa?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Josh?
I am so well. So you are known as the San Diego wedding photographer, right?
Yes, absolutely. I've been doing that for about 14 years now.
Wow. When did you pick up your first camera?
Oh, probably. I think it was around eighth grade, sometime in high school. And my parents always supported me and bought me a camera, and I joined the yearbook, and that's how I started doing photography, fully self-taught.
And what kind of camera was that at that time?
I had a Canon Rebel G. It was all film. There's no digital.
Sure, sure.
So
Wow.
yeah, I developed all my own film and printed my own.
Oh, you developed all your own
Oh yeah.
film.
Oh
Wow.
yeah.
So someone like me had to go to one of those photo booths that sat in the middle of some sort of shopping center that always made me laugh. You remember those? And then you
Oh
would
yeah.
deliver the film in the envelope and then wait a week and then they would like give it back to you. What was so interesting is that it's always like thinking about that concept. Now we just snap everything in any delete, and we can edit, and it doesn't cost us any time, any effort, any energy. But back then you would take 12 or 24 or 36, depending on the amount of film you actually had. And then you had to wind the camera, take those, and you had no idea what you got until you saw it after development.
It's so true. I mean, it's such a different time now, and I'm a very different photographer than I was back then because you did have to be a little more careful. I have a funny story. When my eighth grade trip, my parents gave me a little point and shoot for the trip, and I came home, and every single picture was of a squirrel. And my parents got so mad at me because I took 36 exposures of a squirrel, and they really had to teach me, like, no, you need to be more subjective, and you
It's
need
so
to.
funny. And it's so amazing because that's not able to come out after the film was purchased, after you exhausted all numbers
Mhm.
and then until your parents got it developed, you waited the necessary time, got it back, so excited to then just scroll through the picture. And only then can they see what their daughter was
After
doing.
all the money is spent.
Well, they should have known there was something of a professional career in the waiting. That's the
Yeah.
mark of someone who's going to become. I have so many more questions. We might as
Sure.
well, obviously, hold them for the recording, but good stuff. Good stuff. Cool. All right. Well, I am ready if you are ready to hit
Let's do it.
record.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, here we go. Hey there, guys. Thanks for joining us. You're tuned right into the Hidden Entrepreneur Show. I am your host, Josh Cary. Our guest today is a destination wedding photographer in San Diego, and a very skilled one at that, I might add. She began traveling at 6 months old, sitting on her mom's lap, and her passion was born. Today, she's been a self-employed wedding photographer for over 13 years. When she started her business in 2005, she was in an abusive relationship with a raging alcoholic. She supported them both on a budding entrepreneur salary, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. When she left her abuser, her business flourished and she became a top wedding photographer in San Diego and now makes 6 figures several years in a row. Imagine that. Help me welcome to the show. It's Melissa McClure. How's it going, Melissa?
Hi, Josh. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction.
Lovely it is. As we were talking before we went on the air, there is so much, even in just that paints this beautiful picture of your journey as an entrepreneur. And that's why I was so excited to have you. Like I also said, I'm an artist in many aspects. I'm an actor and filmmaker. So I love, admire, and appreciate all aspects of the creative arts. So you're certainly part of that. But I also think everybody is an artist in their own right. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I think we all have some creativity in there, and it just manifests in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And for you, it manifested this way. So tell us how you got into photography, not as an adult. I want to hear the story of growing up when you first discovered it. When did you get your
Oh,
hands
yeah.
on a camera?
You remember those little disposable cameras? The
Mm,
little wind up, they had, 24, 36.
of course, the
My parents used to buy me those all the time.
love
And
it.
I used to take pictures of anything I could, anything that was in my eyesight, I would take pictures of. And I think it just kind of grew out of that. And then I hit high school and I was part of the yearbook, and the photo editor was graduating. And I really loved that he had his own dark room, and I kind of wanted my own little space and thought it was so cool. So I'm like, hey, I could be a photographer. So it was out of almost curiosity and excitement that I picked up a camera and became the photo editor for 3 years.
Wow. Now you're talking about those disposable ones. Those are the ones that Kodak or any other brand
Mhm.
makes that come in that like foil wrap, right? Those ones.
Yes, absolutely. Those are my original.
You know, it's so funny you say that, and I haven't thought of those cameras in so long, and I certainly haven't thought that they actually are disposal. How genius is that invention?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they weren't cheap by any
Oh
means.
no, that's right. Right. So what is the difference between a camera like that? What did it lack? What did it do? What was the benefit versus what you today have access to?
I mean, tons of bells and whistles, obviously. That was a super basic point and shoot, absolutely no manual controls.
No
Um,
focus needed, nothing.
right. It had a flash, just a very basic flash to take very flashy photos. So yeah, it was fine for the age that I was, and I understand, but no, now I definitely couldn't be a professional with those.
I have some professional photographer friends, and I've been around professional photographers, and I see what goes into it. What do you make of the? I mean, our phones today quite rival, especially with the filters and the ability. What do you make of that? Just anybody being able to sort of fudge their way through taking amazing pictures.
I mean, it's insane what the cameras can do. Just even the last year, the capabilities that they have are just blowing me away. Apple iPhone is what I have with the portrait mode. It's just killing it with the depth of field, with the bokeh that it can do. So I really think that the phones are starting to change the game. But the truth is, it's more about the connection with your clients.
Boom. Go
It's
ahead. I love it. Yeah.
so it's more about being able to interact with your clients, make them comfortable in front of the camera. It's posing. It's really knowing lighting, which is the number one thing of photography. So yeah, they can take a nice picture when you're in a perfect situation with lighting and everything, but really knowing how to manipulate the camera to use not so good lighting, or knowing how to make a person feel comfortable when they're not, is really what it comes down to being a professional.
Why wedding? What drew you into that
It
genre?
was it fell in my lap. It was an accident. I never wanted to be self-employed. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was not my goal. Now I
Go
can't.
on.
Now I can't see myself doing anything else. But I got a degree in photojournalism, and I was working for a newspaper around. It was about the time of 9/11 happened, and I was assigned to it was a candlelight vigil right after 9/11, and they said, go take photographs of people in mourning. And I said, okay, no problem. And I went, and I took some really great photos of people hugging and crying and very emotional. And I came back to my editor, and he goes, this was a college newspaper. He says to me, well, what's their name? What's their major? Why are they crying? And I said, that's not, I'm not going to go interrupt someone in mourning.
Oh, wow.
And it just completely blew my mind that as a photojournalist, I would have to do that. And I'm a very empathetic person, and I just could not handle it. And I promptly quit. I my career that I thought I wanted was over, and I was 22, 21.
So you saw the idea of having to, while you could capture these incredible pictures, that you would have to almost cross the line and tap, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what's the spelling of your name for this, and then make it about that.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. In my heart, that was not what I could do to people. So, um, going back to answer your actual question, I quit photography and I had a degree, and I started working in retail, and I was working for a jewelry store, jewelry chain for years. And then I started working for a friend's dad who was a doctor. And one of the nurses, or one of the staff at his doctor's office, was getting married. And it was her second wedding. She was a little bit older and she couldn't afford very much. And my parents, in efforts to get me to use my career, had bought me a really nice brand new digital camera. It was only the second one on the market. This is 2002. And it was a Canon 20D. And they just really wanted to push me to start photographing again, because I just had fallen out of love with it. And so this coworker said, come take pictures at my wedding. I said, absolutely not. I'll ruin it. I'll never do a good job. I'll owe you money, even though I won't let you pay me. And so she finally convinced me to do it. Showed up on the day. I took, I think, 2,000 pictures on my digital camera and fell in love with weddings.
But imagine all that self-talk going into it. No, not me.
Oh, yeah.
I'll ruin it. Was that a recurring theme?
Oh, that's always a recurring theme. I still struggle with some negative self-talk these days, but it's something that I actively can see and work on, though. But yeah, back then I didn't have the confidence. It was really the interaction and the posing that scared me. I didn't get a lot of that in college. I got a lot of lighting and aperture and, depth of field and all that, but I didn't get how to talk to clients and how to deal with them. So the interaction scared me more than anything else.
Wow. And I read at the top of the show that you got your first passport at 6 months old, and you began a life of travel.
I did. My parents are extreme travelers. They have been their whole lives. And they actually lived in Africa and Afghanistan the 10 years before I was born.
Wow.
So they
what
were
do they do?
So my dad joined the Peace Corps, and my mom followed him, and then he got a job for the government, and they lived in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia for a long time, and only came back to the States to have me.
So is travel a big part of your life today?
Oh yeah, still to this day. Anytime that I can book a trip or jump on a plane or even just take a road trip, I'm there.
Why? Why is that important?
I love to, number one, I love to eat. I love to eat and try new foods and, just get out of my comfort zone with foods. And my husband and I are big craft beer people. So we love to travel and drink beer. And with that usually comes meeting people. And I love to experience new cultures and try new foods.
You know what I always say? Every time that I'm at a restaurant and I pinpoint something that is always me, that I'm always like gravitating towards on a menu, two things that come to mind. If there's a beet salad, it's mine. I will order any beet salad at any restaurant and most oftenly love it. Or a wedge salad. If there's a wedge salad, I'm like, I'll take one of those. So then every time I realize, those are like a couple of things that are always me. I always feel I should probably travel the country looking for all the beet salads I can and just document it. Can I get a show like that? That would be
yes. Or you can at least get a blog.
I know. Yeah. It's called Your Own YouTube Show.
True.
Well, hey.
So your wedge salad and beet salad is my acai bowl.
Wait, say that again. Oh,
so mine is the acai bowl. I love I actually wanted to do a blog about the best acai bowls in the world.
Right. And travel around, finding them, critiquing them, tasting them,
Yes.
shooting video. Works for me. I want to go on the road. Yeah, I love how I mean travel I've heard is very important to oneself, and especially for children. And I have two small children, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we try to take them traveling as often as possible. And I know that it's a positive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think anytime you can get them out of their comfort zone is really going to help mold them into open-minded people.
Yeah, and to just basically expose them to different scenes, scenarios, sights, sounds, smells, touches, cultures,
Yeah, all of that.
languages. Yeah, amazing. Take us back to what life was like for you growing up. I know that we touched on the fact that 6 months old, you started traveling, but paint that picture. What was life like for Melissa growing up as a young child?
I was very fortunate to have a such a positive upbringing. Um, I have two parents that have been married going on 49 years
Hmm.
this year, and they were always very supportive in anything I wanted to do, sports or theater or anything, dance. And so my dad was always my coach. My mom was always my cheerleader. She's still my number one fan. So
That's
I
awesome.
I identify as an adult now how lucky I am to have that, because I know not everybody is that fortunate to have such supportive parents. And I think that shaped me. I will say that I was very naive growing up, very just in my own little bubble. And maybe that's an only child. My parents were kind of kept me a little sheltered. And when I went to college, it really manifested, and, and I came out and went a little crazy.
We'll get to that craziness in a minute. I just want to, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California. It's this little town called Fallbrook. It's all the way north San Diego.
And where'd you go to college?
I went to college in Peoria, Illinois at Bradley University.
So you're like, I'm going much across the country.
Yes.
And then what do you mean you went a little crazy?
I just, I never drank alcohol in high school. I never did drugs. I got okay grades. I'm not the best student. And overall, I was a pretty good kid. I rebelled in certain ways, but then I went away to college and I just went crazy. I ate anything I want. I drank anything I want. I partied so hard. I didn't go to class, and I actually ended up getting kicked out of school my first year.
What
So
were you what were you looking to major in?
I was majoring in photography, communications with a photography emphasis.
And they said you have to go. And you
Yeah, it happens when you don't show up to class.
exactly. And then you have to move back home?
I had to move back home for a semester, which was really embarrassing and disheartening.
Yeah.
And again, I was living that life of sheltered life where my parents were very overbearing, I guess. They wanted to know where I was at all times, and I had that taste of freedom at college, so it didn't go well. I ended up running away from home at 20. I mean, it was
Oh wow.
it was just it was a bad time for me. I thought I was an adult, and I was definitely not an adult.
And don't tell me what to do type thing.
Exactly.
So you're certainly on the entrepreneurial path now, but did you sort of see that for yourself back then?
No, oh no. I was a little lost. I I knew that photography, I kind of picked photography out of convenience, I guess. I went into a communications undeclared, and I got to college and they were like, "Oh, you have to pick an emphasis." And I said, "Oh, I
Hmm.
guess I have a camera. I guess I'll do photography." So I never saw myself as a photographer or doing anything on my own, or entrepreneurship was not even like a term that I even knew. Um, I grew into wanting to be a Sports Illustrated photographer. I
Hmm.
wanted to cover sports photography because that was something that I was good at in college and I enjoyed it. And it's really, really hard to work for Sports Illustrated. It actually doesn't exist anymore, being a photographer for Sports Illustrated. But it was a pipe dream that I never actually pursued.
Hmm. And then when you went back home for the semester, you
Mhm.
then went back to a college?
I went back to the same college, which was pretty rare, but I was in a sorority. I had a lot of friends. I had a
Yeah.
lot of fun, obviously. So I worked really hard and I got my grades up at a local community college. I worked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I really turned it around and took college more seriously after that.
And then you went back to Illinois saying, can
I
I come back,
I, I
please?
did. I did.
And they said, sure, sure,
Nice enough they let me in.
sure. So now you graduate college, and what is Melissa looking to do? How is she living life?
I know I touched on this a little earlier, but I this is when I thought I was going to be a photojournalist, and I started working for a local newspaper, and then the 9/11
Yeah,
story, and I just felt lost. I called it my quarter life crisis back
I love
then.
it. Yeah.
I worked in retail for 2 years. I worked at the doctor's office for a short time, and right when that wedding fell in my lap, I decided to break up with my long-term boyfriend, my college boyfriend, and move back to California because I felt that that was the right place for me.
Interesting. I appreciate that you said you felt lost because my goodness, can't we all relate to that? I spent so many years feeling lost, confused, depressed, lonely, right? All those feelings. How did you survive that?
My parents were a huge, huge support. They were there to pick me up off the ground every time I needed it.
Wow.
I had a really great support system and friends, which those two things are my still to this day my big support system.
Hmm. And we mentioned in the intro in the mid 2000s you found yourself in an abusive relationship. How did that originate?
Oh, yeah. So when I left my college sweetheart and I
Yeah.
left Illinois and basically left my home that I knew and moved back to California, I had ideals that it would be like when I left it when I was in high school, like all my same friends would be there,
Oh
and it
yeah.
just wasn't the same. So I came back to California and I was lonely. I was so lonely. I was living with a good friend who had just gotten a new boyfriend. So, of course, she was distracted,
Unavailable.
unavailable. I wasn't working. I didn't know how to start my business. This is all right around that time that I was starting to shoot weddings. And I found myself on online dating. And
Go on.
I always say my self esteem was at an all time low. I had gained probably about 60 pounds after college. Again, found myself friendless,
Hmm.
boyfriendless. My family was not nearby. My parents were living in Oregon at the time. And I was in a very bad place. And I wish I would have noticed that and gone to therapy and worked on myself, but I didn't. I jumped into a relationship that was not healthy.
It's so intriguing how looking, in on this now, I can see and hear because we've all been there. We are at our unhealthiest mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Then we put ourselves out there and really attract the negative back in, right?
Oh my gosh, you absolutely nailed it. That's exactly what happened. And I wanted to feel loved and I wanted to feel sexy and I wanted to feel desired. The things that normal people want.
Yes, right. And then can't I just get it from somebody on the outside who I barely like or respect, but give me
Yeah.
an ounce of attention and
Yeah.
show me, validate me from the outside and
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was
never winds up
you
being
nailed it. I mean, that's
well.
exactly how it was. Yeah,
So
so it was hard. I knew from day one that he was bad. He was bad news.
listen to that. I'm sorry. You knew from day one. And I point that out because I always say we know exactly what we want. We know what's right for us. We know what's not right for us. But what do? We ignore it. We make up every excuse under the sun. I've done that my whole life in the regard of knowing my talent, knowing my skill, knowing my ability, knowing my power, but choosing to stay hidden for all my reasons. So go on. So you knew it from
I
day
knew it.
one.
I knew it, and everyone around me knew it, which was which looking back is so sad that I
I
didn't
know.
listen.
Yeah.
Very early on, you mentioned he was an alcoholic, and I had
Mhm.
never dealt with alcoholism. That was a completely new thing to
Wow.
me. So
Okay.
I didn't know at all what I was getting into. And very early on, he actually took my car when I was traveling without my mom. I did give him permission. But the keys were there. We were living together, and he actually got a DUI in my car and totaled it. And
Quick side question.
yeah,
Random question. Are you responsible in any way for that in that scenario?
no, no, I never was.
Okay.
No, I never got. Yeah,
Right. Okay, fine. Because it's your car, your insurance is on there, it's your register, but no, you are out of the game there. It's all on
right,
him.
right.
Okay,
I mean,
so wow.
there might have been, but I never had to come across anything like that.
That's great. Okay, so
Yeah,
that was his situation,
yeah.
atrocious, and now you have to obviously pick up the pieces.
Yeah, I did, and I had the car was paid off. It was actually a gift from my parents from years ago, and so
Right.
there was only liability insurance on it. So all of a sudden, I found myself carless, and I wasn't really working because I was trying to get my business off the ground. I did. I'm sorry, I did have a pretty menial job,
Hmm.
and my car was probably worth about excuse me, probably worth about $2,000, and I stayed with him because I felt if I dumped him at that point, I would never see the $2,000. So
Okay.
it's such a silly excuse when I look back on it. And surprise, I didn't get the $2,000 ever.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. And I saw that coming. I'm like, yeah, and I'm sure you never got it anyway. Of course we should have seen that coming. It's all we make those excuses. That's
Yeah,
all we do to help ourselves sleep at night and perpetuate the story and the belief we want to be our current model of truth.
absolutely. And the worst part is I knew deep down that I wasn't with the right person and I wasn't in the right relationship, and I hid that from my parents and I hid that from my friends, and I retreated. I didn't talk to anybody about it, and I wish I would have. I wish I would have been more open and vulnerable about it.
Meaning what? Saying, I really appreciate you sharing all of that. So you said that you hid that, meaning you knew the less than desirable and optimal situation you were in. But when you say you hid it, you just put on the happy face and made it seem like, no, it's fine. It's good. It's great. It's what I'm doing now. Everything's perfect.
Absolutely. I mean, my mom is going to be listening to this podcast, and I don't think she even knows the story to this day.
Which part?
The about the DUI and totaling my car.
Mm,
So
wow.
it's something that I hid because I was
Even that.
embarrassed.
Wow. To this day,
Yeah,
you
to
hid that.
this day. Yeah, yeah,
You were embarrassed. Go ahead.
right. So I wish that I wish that I would have been more self-aware to open up to somebody and be vulnerable and say, you know what, I don't know how to get out of this situation, but you know, maybe get advice.
So powerful for me to hear. We can all certainly relate to so much of that. So, how did this relationship, 2.5 years, how did it finally come to an end?
Ooh, yeah. Well, um, I finally got fed up. I was talking to a friend, and I finally opened up that this man was an alcoholic, and had cheated on me, and he had been
Mm,
physical with me.
mm,
And the person just was like, "This, you don't deserve this," and
no.
it just kind of clicked in my head, and I was like, you know what, like. I was living at a horrible place with him because I think I mentioned this to you, but I was the one paying all the bills. I was getting my business started. I was paying all the bills. I was working two jobs. I was landed myself in the hospital because I was working too much. And I just was embarrassed of my life. And here I am trying to build this business, and just I was embarrassed.
Whew, chilling, Melissa, chilling. Because I get it. I've been there in my own ways, right? Where you're living your reality, and you're hiding everything. You even use that word, and that's the whole nature of my brand, the hidden entrepreneur. I spent decades, yeah, hiding all of my truth, all of my ability to give everybody else the power, and
Absolutely.
feeling embarrassed or just, being me and hiding all of this stuff. And then it perpetuates, and then the guilt and the shame and the guilt and the shame. And then it just builds on itself and you hide more. And you're like, wow, I am in deep. I am showing up in the world as a version that is of no resemblance to me.
Absolutely. And I didn't learn my lesson after that relationship ended. I did leave. I was strong. I left, but I jumped into the very first relationship I could with a man that was nice to me.
Okay,
So,
sounds decent, but go ahead.
but I married him. and I divorced him.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I didn't learn my lesson until I did some therapy years later.
What lesson didn't you learn? What was wrong with because it wasn't the right nice person, it was too soon, you weren't, what was wrong?
But both of those things,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I met him probably days after I moved out of with my ex-boyfriend,
Okay, yeah.
and he was a very kind man. He was very nice to me. Again, he didn't abuse me. He
Yeah.
wasn't an alcoholic, all these
So
things.
there's that.
So I did do an upgrade, but it wasn't the right person for me. And I think if I had done more work on myself, I would have noticed
Mm.
that this just wasn't a good fit for me. So our marriage only lasted 16 months.
Hmm. Wow. And were you still getting your wedding photography business off the ground, or yeah.
This is pretty much right when it was starting to take off. I was really busy through those years that I was getting married and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Mm. So then 16 months later, you call it quits with him, and now you start working on yourself while you are continuing to work on and grow your business.
So it was pretty amazing. I when we split up, I started going to therapy pretty regularly, like 2 times a week, and just really digging into why I was choosing these men that I had to take care of, where I had to be be the breadwinner and I had to be the enforcer, and so I really really worked on that for a good solid 8 months, and that was when I was working on myself is when my business just flourished.
What did we learn? Why did you find yourself in that role?
I'm not totally sure. I think that I just am a people pleaser and I feel the need to help and
Mm,
I want to please people. I want to make people happy and I want to encourage and
mm.
inspire, but I was manifesting that in the wrong way in a
Yeah, yeah.
relationship. I needed to look for a partner rather than like someone that I need to take care of.
As they say, we have to love ourselves fully
Mm.
and not need another to complete us or make us whole, which is the big win. That's the
Absolutely.
goal, to
Absolutely.
enter in all relationships where you are absolutely whole yourself, not needing any missing piece, but a complementary piece so it works. And I love that you connected the dots between your your business flourishing the moment you began to, because I had that epiphany through this current brand of mine prior, hitting myself against the same wall over and over, frustrated, wondering why it's not working out, thinking I'm going to change external circumstances. Oh, well, let me try this. Oh, well, they have to like this. Oh, well, what if I do that? No, it was all the same person coming to the table with, whether it was insecurity, desperation, neediness, all those things bundled up into a package saying, hey, do you like this? How about if I put a green bow on it? How about a red bow? Whatever. And it didn't work until I was like, wait a minute. I'm the common denominator here. I have to make the change, and then the external happens.
Oh, that's absolutely what happens. I can just tell when my energy's high and I'm excited, like my business just does so much better. And I was able to work on myself and my business at the same time. That's when my destination portion of my business took off. I started traveling. I was able to travel solo. It just I and then I met a man that my now husband
Right.
because
We
I was in a good place. I was in a place where I was open to that, and yeah,
I love that, your now husband. We love your now husband.
yes.
And so I love how you've connected. We said you've been traveling at a very young age, and now that's a big portion of your business, meaning you are shooting weddings outside of San Diego. Is that simply put what it means?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I would say about 50% of my business is outside of San Diego.
Wow.
I typically shoot, it's gone down, the number's gone down a little bit because I've been putting energy elsewhere, but at the height of my wedding photography, I was shooting about 35 weddings a year, with about half of those outside of San Diego.
I just love that concept that you're able to, it's like all of your loves rolled up, right? And you're, I mean, how exciting to get the gig where you see, oh my God, I'm going there. How amazing is that? It's like a double win for you, right?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And it's taken me places that I probably may have never gone on my own, you know,
Like,
Sicily.
you don't say.
Yes. Sicily was a
Really?
great experience. I'm not sure I would have chosen to go there, and I'm so glad that I got to go and experience it.
Wow. That's amazing. So back to connecting the dots on your current husband. So you're living your life, working on yourself, and he came into your world at the perfectly right time for you.
Absolutely. Yes, he absolutely did. And he was, we had a lot of the same ideals and future plans aligned. So it worked out really well.
Wow. That's so wow. That's what I started this saying, that you epitomize the entrepreneurial journey that I just love. So where do you grow from here?
It's, my next goal is to step away from photography. I am turning 40 pretty soon, and my body just, as I've been doing it for 14 years, it's hard on your body. So I just don't see myself in 10 years doing the same thing, but
Okay.
I would love to teach. I spent 2 years mentoring a group of 3,000 photographers.
What
Yeah.
in what was that online somewhere?
It's an online school that a friend of mine started and has become really successful. And he had me on from the beginning, and I helped mentor and help photographers get their businesses off the ground. And I found a passion for it.
What site is this?
It's Cole's Classroom,
Okay.
Coles.
Wow. So he brought you on and you had thousands of students who you were teaching.
Absolutely. It was a great, great experience. I'm no longer
Yeah.
teaching there, but I'm working on finding my own way
Yeah.
to teach. And I do in-person mentorships for local photographers. And
Hmm.
that's my next direction.
What is your relationship with failure these days?
Oh my gosh. I I have a very interesting relationship with failure because I was brought up to not talk about it. I was brought
Hmm.
up to, oh no, you sweep that under the rug. We don't fail. And I've lived my life very open because of my business, because I do think that is one reason my business is successful, is being open about my life and who I am. And it's been hard for me to share about failure. Um, I I've had some really bad client situations that I have only just begun to open up sharing about. I've had, um, I put on a retreat recently that failed. There's some things that I've been
Hmm.
doing, and it's been hard to open up about that. That's just something I struggle with.
The very nature of this brand, the Hidden Entrepreneur, was created and founded on the premise that I was hiding all of my power and excusing it through all the fear I was feeling, using that as the excuse for everything or not to do everything. Can you tell us about a time that you were also living in fear and not able to progress, and how you got through that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one that comes to mind is obviously when I was in the abusive relationship, because I
Mm.
didn't have anyone. I didn't have anyone to turn to. One of my friends actually came to me and said, if you I can't be your friend if you continue to stay in this relationship, because they
Mm.
saw how how much of a shell of myself that I was. So it was really hard for me to see outside of that world that I felt stuck in.
Mm.
And I just couldn't. I had started my business, and I was photographing weddings, and I was putting on a brave face when I was
Wow.
there, but then I was going home to be miserable and take care of a man child.
Wow. You say that we shouldn't be afraid to speak our truth. What does that mean tangibly?
I mean, I feel like we all have something going on. We all have trauma, or we have failures or anything like that. Everybody has something in their life. Nobody's had a
Mm.
perfect life. And I think the more open we are to talking about the fact that we're human beings, that we have issues and we have mental illness and we have all these things, I think the more open we're talking about it, it's gonna fix our problems more, I guess. It's gonna make other people feel connected to you or feel open to sharing, and then therefore getting help.
I love that so much. Looking back on on a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give that person?
Oh, just love yourself more. you know, don't worry about the few pounds that you put on, or don't worry about this friend that said this thing behind your back. There's things in life that are way more important, and speak your truth in the way that tell the people in your life that you love them. I actually recently lost one of my very close friends 2 weeks ago, and
Mm.
I wrote her a text message about a month and a half before she lost her life, and told her exactly how I felt about her. And I feel so good knowing that she knew
Hmm.
she knew that she knew how I felt about her. So I'm trying to live my life more about letting people know how I feel about them, what they mean to me, how important they are to me, because I think that really helps.
Wow. Such a beautiful sentiment. Do you believe that everything happens for a reason?
I do. I think we can make our own decisions, and we make our own choices in life, but I do ultimately think that life gives us learning lessons. There's take something from the negative and turn it into a lesson, and you can move forward in confidence.
Hmm. Are you spiritual or religious in any ways?
I am not religious. I was not raised religious. Religion in general, organized religion specifically, interests me. I do feel that I'm more spiritual, and I'm exploring more of that more recently.
Hmm.
So yeah, I definitely believe in the power of putting your energy out there, and you get what you give, and that sort of
Hmm.
thing, and
Wow.
asking for what you want.
Imagine that. What do you believe happens when it's all over? When our time here on earth comes to an end?
I would love to believe that we're reincarnated, because that makes me happy, but I just don't know if that's scientifically a thing. But I read this really great, I don't know if it was a poem or a passage, and I'm going to totally butcher it, but the essence of it was that our our atoms and our spirit never actually leave the earth. They just get redistributed elsewhere. So
Hmm.
it was really, really powerful. I wish I had it on me to share it with you, but it made me feel a lot better with my friends passing. Somebody sent it to me that she's not gone, that her everything that she was is still on this earth. It's just not in her human form.
Hmm. I love that. I will leave you with this final question. Melissa McClure, how would you like to be remembered?
I want to remember for being kind. I want to be remembered for cheering people up when they're down, or being the friend that they can go to make them smile.
This conversation has just been beautiful. Thank you. I love where it went. I love where you went. Thank you for bringing yourself in every regard to this discussion. It means a lot. Thank you for showing up, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Josh. This was a really great experience.
I appreciate that. It means everything. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, whether you're listening to the audio or watching the video production. I thank you. If you got something out of it, take a step forward. And like Melissa said, be kind, right? Put kindness into the world. Take action and put something good into the world. Continue to do good things. We're going to have another episode for you, not too far behind. Until we do, go get them. All right. We are off the air, but live on Facebook. A quick
Great.
wrap up. How do you feel?
Good. I feel really good. Thank you. You're very kind and you're a very good interviewer, and I really appreciate you having me.
Well, that's beautiful to hear. I'm a fan. I'm going to follow and we'll stay in touch. Thank you for spending this time with us.
Yes. Thank you so much, Josh.
I'll see you soon, Melissa.
All right. Bye.